Welcome to Artists Rising. Today we are talking about overcoming obstacles and working through creative blocks. And by obstacles, that can really mean circumstances, thoughts and limiting beliefs, strong emotions that we're not really sure how to work through. So anything like that comes up and keeps you from actually showing up in whatever creative medium you love, and just as sort of blocking you from being your best self and just being vulnerable. And so today I'm going to share with you 3 of my favorite exercises that really help me whenever I'm feeling stuck. Here we go. Welcome to Artists Rising. This podcast is for artists to learn more about cultivating creativity and fostering mental and emotional health. Basically, the stuff we don't learn in art schools and conservatories. My name is Jenny Rebecca, and I am here to empower and equip you to go forward in pursuing your creative dreams with more confidence, resilience, and freedom to show up and do what we as artists do best. Be vulnerable day after day. Let's do this. When you see me flying, you're gonna wanna scream. So I just want to start by saying, as I actually talked about in the very first episode of this podcast, a lot of times if there's something standing in the way of us creating, it's usually a feeling. Either we're feeling something that's making us uncomfortable, or we're feeling something that we perceive as negative, like fear, anxiety, shame, or we're wanting to avoid a feeling that is coming that is uncomfortable or negative. So as these thoughts and feelings come up, and believe me, they will come up regularly as we're continuing on our creative journey. And anyone who's read the book, The War of Art by Steven Pressfield can agree with me. Resistance is real. And oftentimes comes the most when we actually really need to be doing something, and it's really significant work. And we need to have a strategy to know how to navigate these kinds of emotions that come up and different kinds of limiting beliefs and thoughts, and be able to go forward with our lives and with our creativity and get in the flow again. So, and honestly, isn't that all we really want as creatives, just to stay in the flow? I really feel like that's alignment, and I kind of liken creativity to love. That creative energy is really like love, and it's really one of the most powerful forces in the whole world. And as humans, we also just want to connect to love and stay in that flow of love. And as artists, we want to connect to that realm of wonder and play and just create all day without stopping. At least that's mostly how I feel. So I'm speaking for myself, but most of my artist friends would also tend to agree with me. So when things do get in the way, here are my 3 favorite methods to start to deal with those feelings and thoughts. And we have to start with getting curious, and all 3 of these exercises require that you really start by observing your thoughts and feelings and starting to just become more and more aware of the kinds of things that are happening in your mind and in your heart. So this first exercise is actually from Byron Katie, and she calls it the work. And essentially, she will take a thought and then ask herself 4 questions. And so, let's see, you could take a thought like, I actually didn't think about this soon enough, but I'm just going to take a thought that one of my students was talking about recently, and just feeling like her hard work will never pay off, that she'll never be as good as she wants to be. And so if that is for example, a recurring thought that comes into your mind, and maybe as soon as you start to write, or as soon as you start to pick up your paintbrush, or I don't know, whatever your creative medium is, if you start to feel that thought, think that thought and then feel emotions that are coming from that thought pattern, then you can ask yourself these 4 amazing questions from Byron Katie. The first question is it true? So you think about that thought, I will never be able to be good enough, kind of, and you ask yourself, is it true? And in the moment, it might really feel true, and that's okay. You can answer honestly, and if it feels true, then you can say, yeah, I think it's true. Most often, it's usually not true. And the second question that she has is, can you absolutely prove that it's true? And so if you were to take that thought or that belief and like basically have in a court of law evidence, usually the kinds of thoughts that we're thinking that actually are obstacles in our creative process are not true, and really our perceptions in our head, things that are kind of exaggerated and grandiose, and they seem true, but they're usually not true. And so to ask yourself that and really get curious and really dig. And then the third question is asking yourself, how do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? And I would ask you to really think about that in a physical way, in your inner dialogue way, as you interact with others. So let's say you're just walking to the grocery store and you're thinking that limiting belief. How does that manifest in your body? Do you feel like a tightness in your throat or in your chest? Do you feel a heaviness on your shoulders when you're thinking that thought, when you're really believing that thought? And then how does it look when you are actually interacting with other people? Is that something that actually starts to make you feel insecure or slightly unhappy as you are talking to other people, and maybe you're not believing in yourself to the capacity that you know is possible? So ask yourself that question. Get really curious. Look at how that belief in your life is actually working itself out and manifesting. What does it look like actually when you are actively believing in that thought, partnering with that thought? And the fourth question is, who would you be without that thought? So it's like, I want you to visualize now if you actually never, ever suffered from that thought again. And usually, this is just speaking from experience, quite often when I feel stuck, when I feel anything negative come up in my own creative process, it usually is a similar thing, a similar belief, a similar thought pattern. And so if I try to imagine what would my life be like if it wasn't there, oh my goodness, my life would be so different. I mean, what if I never even struggled with that? How would I walk differently? How would I approach my creativity differently? How would I interact with other people differently? How would I actually show up maybe in the world, on social media, in connection with other people, in putting my art out there and making it known for other people? And how would that be different? Right? So those are the 4 questions that I want you to just start to think about. And Byron Katie, if you want to look her up, she has a really great website and she talks about the work. She has also a lot of different interviews of her doing these questions with people that I find to be really, really helpful. And it's just a way to actually start to uncover and observe the different thoughts and feelings, how those thoughts manifest in us, and get curious. And the more that we are actually able to stand outside of ourselves and look at what we're thinking, the easier it is to actually bring compassion to ourselves and actually accept those things and then choose a different thought. So that's exercise number 1. And number 2 is an exercise called the model from Brooke Castillo. And she has a similar kind of exercise, but she basically asks people to write down, like in a sort of from top to bottom on the page, C for circumstances, T for thoughts, under that F for feelings, then A for actions, and then results. So you start again, maybe with, you ask yourself, what are you feeling or what are you thinking? You can also start with the circumstance, but the circumstance needs to definitely be a fact and not a feeling or a thought. So that needs to be differentiated. But a lot of times, when we are feeling stuck, it usually has to do with a feeling. So as soon as we can sort of identify the feeling, then maybe we can identify what are we thinking that's making us feel this way. And then, start to also kind of ask yourself again, like, how is this feeling? How are these thoughts actually, what am I acting as a result of these emotions? And then what are the results that I'm producing in my life as a result of these thoughts and feelings? And I'm going to use an example of one of my students recently. He had been preparing to help someone audition for a TV show, and they'd been working on the song for about 3 months, and he was super excited about it because it felt for him like the first legit thing that he'd been working on for a really long time. But all of a sudden, a week before the audition, his friend told him that the qualifications for the audition were wrong and that they wouldn't be able to perform the songs together the way that they'd been rehearsing. And I don't know all the specifications of the circumstances, but the fact was, all of a sudden, he wasn't going to be able to perform with his friend. And he came to our coaching session with a lot of negative emotions behind his ability as a musician, as a songwriter, and kind of overall as an artist. And in fact, so much so that he was just about ready to give up. And when we started to dig deeper and do this exercise, and I was asking him what he was feeling and thinking, he said he was feeling really just rejected and was really taking it personally, what his friend had told him about the audition, and feeling scared that maybe he just wasn't good enough, and that this was his friend's way of letting him down easily, and that maybe she hadn't really wanted to perform with him and had made up this way of telling him that she didn't want to play with him. So he was feeling a lot of fear and really afraid of missing the mark, he said, and kind of hopeless that maybe other opportunities wouldn't come his way, and also just sort of feeling naive and ashamed that he had put so much hope into this opportunity, and a lot of other things. But that's just sort of an example, and I think it's probably one that all of us can relate to, because even if that feeling of rejection is absolutely not personal, and most of the time it's not personal, but it's so easy for us to interpret it that way, right? So I'm sure that we've all felt that multiple times in our lives. And so anyway, if we put these things into the model, we can see that the circumstance was he was told he wouldn't be able to play in the audition, and his thoughts went immediately to, what if it's because I'm not good enough? The feelings that he was having were full of rejection and shame. And then his action actually was inaction. So just being paralyzed, and he would try to sit down and practice or write songs that week, and he was just so full of negative thoughts and emotions and almost rejecting himself and his mind that he couldn't do anything. And so the result then was that he was wanting to just quit and was doubting if he should even go forward in pursuing his music. And this is pretty extreme, but at the same time, I bet if you're listening to this and artistic and going after big dreams, I think it's so easy to just very quickly spiral downwards. Like, I just know from my own experience, I have needed so much encouragement in my own creative journey, which is why I'm so passionate about Artists Rising, why I'm doing this podcast. And I just want to encourage people because it's just so easy to be so overwhelmed with our emotions and with our thoughts that we just freeze up and we don't know what to do. And so we just can spiral downwards, and sometimes it can paralyze us for years at a time. Sometimes less. Hopefully, the more that you are able to kind of, listen and integrate different kinds of exercises like this, then you can start to get a practice so that you can eventually start to know how to coach yourself through these kinds of things and really not be afraid of feeling all the different emotions. So that's definitely why we're doing this. And also, of all these many moments that threaten to make us want to give up and just throw in the towel, honestly, we can really be thankful for these moments, because if they didn't occur as we're on the way to pursuing our dreams, then we wouldn't evolve as humans. And that's also a really beautiful thing. I mean, it's so great to have big, impossible goals and dreams that actually challenge us to become more than we are in the moment, challenge us to become more extraordinary as human beings. So one of the greatest things we can do is step into that evolving process and learn, grow, become better versions of ourselves. But it's not easy. And if it were easy, then everyone would just be doing that and dreaming big. So anyway, back to the model. This is really a great way, just as Byron Katie's The Work, these questions can really be great because we can really step outside of ourselves and take a look at what we're thinking and feeling and see as well what kind of results we're producing and creating in our lives. And we can also take a step back and ask ourselves, is this what I want to create? Is this the kind of life I want to live? Because ultimately, you get to decide that. And that really is the good news. You get to choose your thoughts. You get to choose your emotions. And you also get to decide what all of your thoughts and circumstances mean to you. And you get to decide how to respond. And that's really, really wonderful news. So with the example of my student, we talked through what was happening and essentially filled in the model. And then we did this next exercise, which is called the remote control exercise. And I learned this from my counselor, Laura Duncan. And I also talked about it a bit on podcast episode 4 and 5. And in another really similar way, it's a little exercise that really helps us get curious about what we're feeling. And then even more importantly, helps us bring compassion to those emotions and really just feel through the discomfort and our pain. And that is really something that honestly, I really feel like is the key, is not being afraid to actually feel our pain. I think most of the time we suffer much, much more from being afraid to feel our pain and resisting feeling our emotions. That is the thing that actually, it's almost as if, I'm going to use a childbirth analogy here. So not that I've had any children yet, but what I've heard is that, if you are in labor and you start to resist the labor and tighten up your muscles, it's like, first of all, extremely, extremely more painful. And also that child does not get born. And so in a similar way, it's like we are so afraid to feel our pain and feel our emotions, and we can make ourselves actually, it's more trauma and more suffering if we are avoiding the pain. And also, when we feel our pain, it's like we are born into evolving into a greater human. So it's like, it's our own birthing process here. We are like giving birth to our best selves on the daily. Like, it's an opportunity for that day after day. So I want you to remember that analogy as you're going through. And also, there's a really famous quote that was one of my favorites from M. Scott Peck in The Road Less Traveled. And he talks about how basically all mental illness stems from our avoiding pain. So to the degree that we avoid pain, that is the degree that we're also mentally ill. And that being said, and you've probably heard me say this before, we're all a little bit mentally ill at times, because nobody likes to avoid pain, right? I mean, nobody likes to feel pain. Nobody likes to jump right into feeling discomfort, right? We want to avoid it most of the time, and we are really good at it. We've made so many ways to avoid pain and distract ourselves and become addicted to various things that can numb us, right? But I'm telling you, this next exercise is a key because it helps you actually feel your emotions. And always after I practice this, and I practice this almost every single day, sometimes multiple times, as I'm feeling my emotions, it's almost like the emotion is a vibration, and it just, as I feel it, it releases, and I get lighter, and I'm not afraid of the emotion anymore, and the pain is gone. So, the remote control exercise, you push pause, like you've got a little remote, you just push pause and like let the circumstances of your life just freeze for a second. Number 2, you ask yourself what you're feeling. A lot of times I like to put my hand on my heart because it feels somehow like I'm kind of giving myself a little hug, and I'll just say, Jenny Rebecca, what are you feeling? And then I will list all the things that come up. And sometimes this can take 5 to 10 minutes because I'll just talk and I'll just say, well, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling hopeless, I'm feeling, and this is also part of the curiosity process. You want to keep digging and just say, what else, right? And then once you've listed all the different feelings, all the things that you can think about, then the third step is to bring empathy and compassion. And you just say, Jenny Rebecca, I'm so sorry you're feeling sad. I'm so sorry you're feeling frustrated. I'm so sorry you're feeling angry. I'm so sorry that you're feeling disappointed. I'm so sorry that you're feeling not good enough, whatever it is that you're struggling with, right? The fourth thing, and this is an important differentiation, is you go through all of those emotions again, and instead of this time just saying, I'm so sorry, this time you say, it's okay to feel. And you kind of list all those emotions. So then just say, again, call yourself by name. Just say, oh, Jenny Rebecca, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel disappointed. It's okay to feel angry. You can feel angry as long as you need to feel angry. It's okay to feel hopeless, whatever it is you're feeling. And also, we're not saying like it's going to be okay. We're just saying it's okay to feel XYZ. So it's not like, you don't want to say it's okay to feel, or it's okay, you don't want to say it's going to be okay, because that's just sort of like a blanket statement that actually is avoiding our pain again, right? So we want to just accept all of our emotions and say it's okay to feel all the different things that you're feeling. And so really every emotion is a vibration and a frequency. And it's crazy. The more that I have practiced this, I've come to realize that I can actually start to feel my body respond to the compassion that I can bring to myself, right? So it starts to feel almost like a spinning starts to happen, and the negative emotion like spins right through me. And so I just stay with myself, comforting, bringing compassion, until I feel that start to shift within my body, and you'll feel it. The more you practice it, you will feel it. And it honestly feels so good. It's like you start to connect to your heart and you start to really feel this connection. And you feel as well like you're not alone. Like you are there with yourself. You're there, you're allowing whatever emotion comes to just come. And there's full acceptance, full compassion and comfort, and empathy. And so, and the other thing, the last step that I always really like to say to myself is, I see you, Jenny Rebecca. I hear you. I see how hard you're trying. I see how hard you're working. And I see and know that your heart has the best intentions. You're doing the best you can, right? This is also for me really compassionate with myself and really brings a lot of comfort. So, yeah. This exercise is really, it's changed my life, to be honest. And the other exercises too have really helped me to start to kind of take a step back and really start to examine what are the things that are actually fueling my actions? What are the thoughts and the emotions that are driving me to do the things in my life that I'm doing and creating the results that I'm experiencing in my life? And starting to empower myself to actually change those if I want to change them and start to create anything I want. And that's an exciting, just super exciting thing to be able to create the life that you dream about, and not just your creative dreams. Like obviously we want to continue to go towards that, but creating your experience as you start to go towards them so that you're not just striving and feeling hopeless all the time on the way to your dreams, right? So the other thing that I want to just say to you as encouragement is the only thing that is standing between you and your creative dreams right now is discomfort. And I don't know about you, but for me, I feel like that's really, really good news. And the more that we can start to actually be okay with feeling all the things that come up and not being afraid to feel our emotions, that's actually true confidence right there, is just not being afraid of feeling all your emotions. And you can face anything from that place. So knowing that there's going to be discomfort, and also knowing that you get to choose what that means. If circumstances come into your life, you get to choose how you're going to think about it. You get to choose if that actually is something that's going to paralyze you, or if you're going to have a different perspective about it. So that is all for today. We're going to wrap up now, and I also will be talking on another episode coming up about more about the model and how we can start to create the life of our dreams using these kinds of exercises too, and using thoughts and creating things with thoughts and emotions to get the results that we want. So that's going to be exciting as well. And yeah, just want you to also know that if you want a little worksheets, you can go to my website, and if you look up jennyrebecca.com/obstacles, I will have a little worksheet that you can download, a free PDF, so you can kind of have a way to fill in the work, the model, and the remote control exercise. And also just wanted to say, if you are interested in supporting Artists Rising in any way, I would love for you to go check out my Patreon page. You can look up Patreon, Patreon, Patreon Artists Rising, or Jenny Rebecca Ronning. And for as little as $3 a month, you can support this podcast and what we are doing with Artists Rising, and would love, love, love to have your support. I do not do ads on the podcast, do it all just for free because I love it and I'm passionate about this topic and really helping artists to know how valuable they are and what they're creating is to the world. And so anyway, if you're interested in supporting Artists Rising, please go visit Patreon. And also just want to say, if there are any songwriters listening right now, we're getting ready in the beginning of March to start another singer-songwriter mastermind. So if you would like to jump into that and have weekly coachings, weekly group coachings, you can message me and I'd be happy to let you know more info about that. So lots of love to you wherever you are today. Welcome to Artists Rising. This podcast is for artists to learn more about cultivating creativity and fostering mental and emotional health. Basically, the stuff we don't learn in art schools and conservatories.